Hi guys, my name is Brute, and today we'll be having a chat with David. And if you'd like to tell us a bit about yourself and sort of a fun fact, that would be great. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So hi, I'm David, and I graduated from USW in 2018, and my university study wasn't really the most straightforward because initially I did a year of Bachelor of Bachelor of Engineering and Commerce, and then decided that I didn't really like it that much, so I transferred myself to the Bachelor of Actual Studies in Economics. And then after graduation, I sort of continued on my postgraduate study in Master of Actuarial Studies. And I started working at PwC at the end of 2018, right after a brief holiday. And I worked in the assurance part of PwC as a cyber consultant for the digital trust team. And as the name suggests, this team sort of specializes in providing our clients with digital solutions, advisory, compliance auditing services, and really like putting the trust in their digital IT and information systems. And we operate in several major domains, so stuff like cybersecurity, cloud security, software licensing, data governance, privacy, business continuity, and resilience. And so what I'm saying is that we help our clients to get the best use of their technologies. So some of the examples of the type of work that we do for clients includes providing yearly compliance review and audit service against major legislative regulations and frameworks such as CPS 234 standard on information security, reviewing clients' business continuity framework, including their business continuity plan and testing procedures and artifacts, or providing or enhancing their data governance framework to bring like better data practices to bring higher commercial and operational values. As for me, majority of the time I work in information security, cybersecurity, and governance and business continuity domains. So most of my clients are actually state government agencies, insurance companies, and some financial institutions. Now, it depends on the type of the clients, their need for our work will be different. So most of the time, because financial institutions and health insurance companies hold a lot of customer data, so they must comply with APRA's regulation, specifically CPS 234 on information security. But some other government agencies, the work is usually around cybersecurity practices or the governance structure relating to risk management and reporting. And we align those with the standards set in either the ISO standards or other state policies. So in both cases, we will hold meetings with the clients and walk through the different processes that they have pertaining to the specific areas that we would like to review. So things like change management, asset management, information classification, vulnerability testing, malware protection, network security, risk management, etc. And with these walkthrough meetings, they would typically show us some proofs and evidence documents that they would share with us for deeper analysis before like putting our findings down in like a report format and present in front of the key stakeholders and the internal audit team. As for myself, like a fun fact about myself, well, I'm a big sports fan, so particularly in basketball, but most of the time, like any fitness or sports events, especially like those going on at work at PwC, I'll be really down to participate. So actually last year at City to Serve, PwC actually got together a team of individuals and we sort of designed our own t-shirts with hashtag digital trust at the back because we were the guys that started it in the first place. So me together with some other graduate students, like we actually became models. And we have to like get our photos taken with the shirt and then share across like the company's wide like G+ page to raise more awareness. So it was a pretty cool thing to see many of our colleagues on the weekend trying to challenge themselves and achieve their personal best. And in the meantime, I actually participated in a volunteering program organized by PwC as part of their initiative bringing more social, goodness to the community. And so this program was jointly organized with ABCN. And this program just really allows high school students, particularly in low socioeconomic backgrounds, to come visit the PwC office and have mentors who teach them about the soft skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, and teamwork that you can gain from the STEM subjects across 4 different sessions. The funny story was I actually applied for the mentoring position. However, it was full at the time. So I actually became a facilitator instead for the program. And it was actually like the first time for me to facilitate or lead a full class of students and mentors about anything at all. So I wasn't really particularly comfortable like speaking in the public, leading a group of kids and adults against the agenda and the timetable. So it really allows me to, get myself out of my comfort zone and sort of push myself to do something that I wasn't planning to do before. And to see these kids fully engaged and asking very intelligent questions and forming sort of friendship with them, and to see mentors really inspiring the kids really gives me the warmth and the perspective about how lucky I am to be in this position, and to see what needs to be done in the society, like to allow more kids and people to have a chance. So that's something that I will always carry with me.
Yeah, I think it's great that we have the sense of support going between communities. I think it's definitely very important in this day and age. I just want to quickly remind and let everybody know, with the policy about questions or just questions in general, feel free to post them in the chat. And then in the second half of this session, we'll open up for David to answer all your eager questions. Yeah, so I'll start with a couple of questions of my own, which is, why did you choose to work at PwC? And I know it's not exactly where you envisioned yourself in the digital trust field, but why your role now?
Well, PwC being one of the big 4 firms means that I will get ample opportunities to work across a wide range of markets. So this could either be in IT audit, which is what I'm doing right now, or it could be in data analytics, where we use various tools and cutting edge technologies such as Ultrix and Tableau, and it could even be in financial audit. The level of flexibility that I get from PwC isn't really what I was expecting when I first got into the firm. So that was a really pleasant surprise for me. And it is really easy for us to do so because I wouldn't say there's no formal internal process, but in my case, I could just talk to my coach and raise it with them that I really that I'm interested in doing such and such, and I want to be on the lookout for any sort of future opportunities to work in those areas, and put that on my job profile. And then obviously depends on the resources available at that point in time, and those opportunities will become available to you. And I think at the same time, I'm actually like a lot of you guys, where I sort of have a rough idea of what I like to do, but without trying everything, without seeing what financial audit feels like, without feeling what it's like to, working with data analytic people, I can't really say for sure, right? So I appreciate having the ability to try everything and really explore myself and discover your potential. And PwC really gives you the chance to do that. And the key lesson I learned here is that to get your name out there and get the relevant people to know that you're interested, and with a firm like PwC with such a big presence in the market, you always have a chance. And at the same time, I feel like you also work with a wide range of clients from different sectors of the economy. So in my case, like I mentioned before, I work with government, retail companies, health insurers, banks and mortgage companies, and other financial institutions. So with each client, they sort of have a unique way of, their way of working. their own requirement and their own their own different set of culture.
Yeah.
So throughout this time, you sort of get to work with and talk with people from all walks of life with their own unique experiences, and it also brings your industry knowledge from from a wide range of leaders. And this is a really precious experience that will shape the way you think about your own career, and it will help you to guide you for a lifetime. I think with all that being said, the biggest drawing point for me is the culture. So I don't know, I don't want to really comment on other companies, but in PwC, it really feels like a family. I always feel like I'm always supported in whatever personal or team-wide career initiatives I want to take. So from personal development, technical training, and volunteering opportunities, the firm is always there for me and assist me in finding opportunities and training courses. So actually 6 months into my role as a graduate, like the 5 of us, and along with consultants from the other Australian offices, we got together to do this cybersecurity foundational course with certificates that was being held by an external training company. And internally within like my team, my broader team, which is risk assurance, there's also like annual FY20 training courses calendar for us to refer to. So we can like choose in the list, which is mapped to different teams and different grades. If there's something that we like to do, we could just put our name down on the waiting list. So the firm is always really supporting me and supporting all of the individuals in our journey to become a better version of ourselves, regardless whether or not it's technical or personal or emotional stuff.
Yeah, I think it's great to see that such a big corporate sort of environment, you feel sort of, I suppose, you get a personal connection with the company. So I think it's great to hear that, especially in the 20th century. Yeah. Moving on to questions more related to, I suppose, your role or the digital industry. If you had the choice to choose one project to do in the digital industry, what would it be?
Honestly, I feel like there are a lot of things that needs to be done in the cyberspace. Things like how to prepare the government agencies and other vital parts of the industry and the country against cyber terrorism and etc. But I feel like on a broader level, I would like to work in a project in cyber risk analysis and quantification. So as cyber risk continue to gain visibility at the really broad level of the company, and organization's ability to sort of articulate those risks, evaluate them, and then demonstrate how those risks are being managed is increasingly important, especially because the major decision makers in cyber aren't usually numbers people. So challenge may like arise of objectively rate these risks and determining like the effectiveness of an organization cybersecurity program. And it can also lead to questions about the ability of the organization to protect itself and protect the return on the investment of the program. So if you think about this, so commonly the chief information security officer may need to understand about how can I assist the senior management in making informed decisions about how to best manage cyber risks, or how do I measure or demonstrate the effectiveness of our cybersecurity investments in relation to our key cyber risks across IT and operational technology, etc. And maybe for the CEO, CFO, and the chief risk officers, they will need to understand how do I communicate clearly and effectively about cyber risk to the board in a language that they can understand, and how do I prioritize, the best investments available for cybersecurity capabilities, or how can I develop a useful set of key risk indicators to monitor my key cyber risks. And even in that case, the board members and audit committees may also need to understand about, what is our key, like what is our cyber risk exposure in economic terms? how are our cyber risks aligned to our enterprise risk appetite? And how much do I need to invest in cybersecurity? Like when do I know I have invested enough money in it? Am I making the right business and operational decisions regarding cyber? So with all of these needs, I want to work in a project that sort of use a leading industry standard for risk quantification. So what we call here is FAIR, which stands for factor analysis of information risk, sort of help the organizations to identify, analyze, and quantify their cyber risks. So we can apply and tailor our approach to suit a variety of use cases, scenarios, and business challenges, with the overall purpose of advancing management of cyber risks by providing information required for effective decision making. So for example, it could be to analyze an organization's key cyber risk to determine the organization's overall risk exposure, and which would include activities like documentation review, facilitate workshops to identify key information assets, financial impact of certain loss events, relevant threat actors and events, and current control strength. In the meantime, it could also be to substantiate the planned investments in security controls or identify alternative control measures for the optimum level of risk reduction. So it could be analyzing the targeted cyber risk, control strength, and the effectiveness of the proposed investments, and using what-if scenario analysis to provide sort of the optimum return on security investments. It could also be to validate an organization's target cybersecurity roadmap to align itself with the cyber. So a project like this one would really allow me to sort of use my risk and quantification background to help address clients, especially in an emerging field where there are a lot of question marks about how we can make things better and to have a more effective risk conversation with them.
It sounds very interconnected, and not only just with the tech field, but more also with the business fields and other sort of fields as well. So I think in relation to this and your transition from a more economics actuarial background to a cybersecurity background, was there any insights that you gained working with cybersecurity that wasn't what you expected, or sort of like dispelled some of the myths or common misunderstandings about cybersecurity?
I wouldn't say it sort of dispels any sort of the myth, but it was a really eye-opening experience, which like I remember my first project, it was with this travel retail company where they sort of manage a lot of the stores that we find in the Sydney airport terminals. So we were helping them to conduct their business continuity plan and assess their disaster recovery capability. So relatively speaking, that company at the time was not really mature in that area. So everything we did was, basically from the ground up, giving them a more beginner approach where we guide them through step by step by first interviewing key stakeholders from each business functions, such as finance, HR, payroll, etc., to understand the key facilities, people, technology, and suppliers. And then we conduct a business impact analysis where we sort of assign criticality to all of these key assets and determine the maximum acceptable hour of outage for each of them, and then how they want to take their time to recover from the disaster, like a targeted time for them to recover. And it was more of a negotiating process in determining these numbers because obviously for business owners, if money was no objection, then they will want everything to be available at all times. So there will be no downtime at all. But this is not feasible in the real world, right? Like there are a lot of times where it is difficult for us to really get this idea through to them. And then also at the same time, we're sort of managing like different personalities. Maybe this guy is saying they're insisting for this system to be absolutely critical. But at the same time, when we have those conversations with the CIO or the IT directors to discuss the current, capabilities and the current budget, that might not be feasible. So it's working with both sides of the same coin where they want the best for the company, but at the same time, it was a little bit difficult for us to satisfy all of their demands. But it was a really fun engagement because it involves us being at the client side a lot of the times, and it involved us to visit a few of the site. So where we examined, so one time where we examined their physical security measures at a warehouse near the airport. And then there was one time where we visit a few duty-free stores where they manage in the domestic terminal to sort of take a closer look at their in-store payment system, the in-store payment processing system. Working with a client like this one, where it was basically everything from the ground up and starting from zero, it allowed me to both understand that the importance of having continuity and resiliency plans, and also see the challenges they face on a day-to-day basis in bringing these actions to life.
Wow, sounds like you definitely have to manage a lot of different interests and stakeholders. Would you classify this as one of the challenge and sort of valuable lesson that you've learned? And sort of otherwise, what sort of challenges or other lessons have you learned through this, and the advice that you give to your uni self?
I mean, first of all, this might not be relating to what I just mentioned before about the project, but like in overall scheme of things, just take your university degree seriously. It means working hard on your study and try achieving the best you can. It's also about keeping a level head. What's most important is the soft skill that you gain from it. Like your eagerness to learn, your ability to work in a team environment, your ability to speak up whenever you have an idea or question. So these are the things that not only makes your time at work smoother and more productive, but also is what sets you apart from the others, right? And also at the same time, just be yourself, embracing like what's making myself and what's making you special and different. Like you don't have to conform to any sort of personalities, but also be respectful to others being their own individualistic self. So be it from the job application process or be on a job, companies really value diversity in the workforce a lot. So everyone is sort of shaped by their own unique experiences, their upbringings, and brings to the table different strengths and personalities. And how well you sort of mesh with your managers and teammates depends on your openness to accept others and yourself. And when opportunities open up at work, where it is something new that you've never done before, take up on those opportunities. Try to work with different managers and people to know their leadership styles and their working habits. Like one of the biggest things I learned was from my second project. It was during the post-engagement feedback where my manager told me to take the good parts from each of the managers I work with and their ways of working, and then form my own unique methods. So this, like the type of colleague that you become in the future depends on how well you take from your previous experiences. But also at the same time, when your manager isn't doing something that I feel comfortable in doing, for example, if you prefer like more face-to-face, like let's sit down together, like work together, that sort of style, then you could speak up to your manager. Or if, I prefer less day-to-day feedback, instead I want like weekly check-in instead, I can just tell them, and like, it is okay for you to do that, just don't be afraid. Because most of the time your managers prefers you to be that way so they could get to know more about you. And on the job, I think for graduates like us, like we are not gonna know everything that is there. So just don't be afraid to ask questions. So there are no questions that are too stupid to ask. I know that people mention it so many times, but it is absolutely true. Because when you think about it, you don't want to ask those silly questions 2 to 3 years down into the job, because that would be the case where you feel like maybe I shouldn't ask this question because then people will know that I'm not really qualified for it. So right now is the perfect time to ask anything that you want. I'm always open to taking any sort of coaching notes, feedbacks, and on the job, off the job, extra training lessons and sessions that your manager will give you. Because the more they value you, the more they will want you to learn. So that would be something that I would tell myself.
I think that's some great lessons there, and I'd like to bring that to our viewers as well. So feel free to take David's advice and feel free to pop questions that you have in the chat, and we'll go through them later. Moving on to some of the questions that students may be curious about. If I was a student and I had no professional experience in sort of the digital field, but I'm still very keen and interested, what sort of advice or tips would you have?
Well, I think in that way, I'm like the living example for it because I came from a completely different background. Well, I would say that while the high achievements in your university studies is a really highly distinguished achievement and reaffirm like your hard work and your technical abilities, but it is your interpersonal skills and your learning ability. It is what's opening up new opportunities and new revenues for you. I know that those university group assignments could be really frustrating at times. Like sometimes you feel like the work that you do isn't paying off, isn't being appreciated. But take those moments seriously because those situations come up a lot at work. And because it is about what you learn about. In those circumstances, you learn more about yourself more than what you learn about others. Like you learn more about the way you prefer to work, the type of people that you prefer to work with, and it will help you in the long run to help you to work with others. I think another thing would be just to know more about your goals and your interests and not to be afraid to own up to it and just keep pursuing those interests of yours. But if cyber is what you're interested in, then be up to date with what's going on in the market, what's going on with the latest cyber threats, development, etc. If privacy is your cup of tea, then stay up to date with that. Like being in tune with the industry trends and the market not only gets you the job, but it will also impress your managers, especially in those client meetings and walkthroughs, and it will give you the confidence to speak up and to contribute and ask good questions to the clients. So not only you will impress your client, but also at the same time, you'll get more out of those meetings.
Moving on, is there any advice you would give for a student in terms of what PwC looks for and how you would stand out as an individual applicant who wants to apply for a PwC internship or a grad role or just any opportunities available?
I would say what PwC is looking for is just individuals not afraid to own up to their own personalities, their own strength, and their own weakness. But like I said before, like you don't have to conform to anything. Just being yourself is really what's gonna set you apart from others. I think when I applied for PwC, if I remember it correctly, they didn't ask for my academic transcript. They didn't ask for my resume. They didn't ask for anything like that. They just sort of based everything off of how I performed in assessment centers, how I performed in interviews, and what my personality is, and how it matches with others in terms of the group work situations. And it is really about being yourself, be comfortable, be confident with it. Also at the same time, showing that you're willing to do everything possible. You're willing to learn everything there is, and open up to suggestions, open up to criticisms, even to continuously looking for ways to improve yourself. Because like I said before, we as graduates are not gonna know, we're not gonna know and everything there is about the job. So being in that sort of mindset will help you a lot in getting not only a job at PwC, but like any sort of job in general.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think following from that sort of perspective, what are some ways to gain experience and skills before an internship?
I think it's by, talking to the right people. I mean, for my personal experience, like being in a master degree really helped me in the long run in getting to know what's going on in the market, or just the basic stuff like what's the day-to-day like in a job, like being in a consultant, being in a professional services firm, like professional service firm. As in terms of gaining experiences and skills before an internship, I think for most of us, it will come from university, come from those group assignments. Like it might seem really daunting for those group assignments, especially if you're getting assigned to a team member who is not doing much or who's not really helpful. But take upon those opportunities, take upon those responsibilities to do to go for the extra mile, to do the extra work, because that will not only give you the experiences, to give you the real time, the real life work experiences. It will also mentally prepare yourself in future circumstances if something like that ever happen again. And that's sort of overcoming adversity. It is also something that employers will look for.
Wow. On the same note as that, would you also recommend taking up sort of activities outside of university, such as like personal projects? And would that sort of, from a graduate perspective, would you reckon that it's something that can sort of help individuals stand out?
Yeah, definitely personal projects, any sort of extracurricular activities that show your personality, show your interest, show your ability to not only think of something new, but also to manage it, to plan it accordingly, and to sort of have sort of achievements and to achieve your goals. That is something that employers will look at a lot because it shows that you know what you want, you're determined, and you have a set plan on how to make things happen, how to achieve your goals. That's sort of really like career-oriented way of doing doing things, especially with your personal projects, will help you along the way as well.
Wow. You mentioned the process for applying to PwC that it's mainly based on interviews and assessment centers. Is there any tips or advices for preparations for the assessment centers and interviews?
Yeah, when I did my assessment center, usually a few days beforehand, you will get an email about the sort of topic that they will talk about in assessment centers, the sort of topics that they will allow for teamwork. And for me, I would just spend a few days doing some online research on, because for me, it was something about city planning, urban planning, and, how to minimize, waste and minimize pollution. So I spent a good few days looking up online and enjoying from my personal experiences, just from living in Sydney, from day to day, the traffic and etc. And then also at the same time, it is important to, on the day, show up to the assessment center, show up to interviews with the correct mindset. That you can't really put that much, pressure on yourself, feeling like this is the only venue for me, this is the only chance for me to get something, to do something that I want. Being the level-headed mindset where you are assured that you've done everything you could, and everything you could from this point on is the best version of yourself. And sort of taking things not too seriously, but at the same time taking them seriously. And that sort of mindset will help you a lot along the way, because from my personal experiences, not everything that will happen on a day is gonna happen smoothly, or it's gonna happen according to your plan. There will always be a few hiccups along the way. It is about how you recover from those hiccups, how you sort of taking them lightly, because in the real world, that sort of situations will come up a lot. So employers will look for those qualities from you.
Oh, definitely about finding that balance between of mindsets. I'll let the audience have a go. We have from Clarence. As someone who has been in the field for a few years, how would you feel is the best way for a uni student to approach you for advice, and how would you like to be approached?
You mean in terms of like messaging, text messages, or things like that. Or, I mean, but I'm always open to, give advice about, how to get myself situated, how to get everybody situated, to be more likable, be more, employable, because I would really like to share my experiences with others and sort of share my life lessons with others. In terms of how I would like to be approached, I'm a pretty easygoing person, so in any case, if you just feel like you want something, or you have a few questions about career, choosing a career, or choosing specifically choosing a career in PwC or in cyberspace, just feel free to message me or leave a message, and I will reply you as soon as I can.
Yep. I hope that answered your question, Clarence. Otherwise, feel free to unmute yourself and give us some clarifications if you have any other questions. Otherwise, we'll move on to the second question, which was, what were your majors in UNSW and which team are you in, part of in PwC? Because I think that the digital trust team is quite diverse and quite big.
Actually, the digital trust team is a very niche team within the overall risk assurance team. So if you think about PwC, you can pretty much, it's been separated to assurance, consulting, like IT, etc., etc. So I'm situated in the assurance, and within assurance, there are risk assurance, there is financial audit, there is transformation assurance, and there is global risk and compliance. And also, I might leave out a few there because I can't really remember their name, but so within assurance, I'm inside risk assurance, and inside risk assurance, I'm the digital trust team. So comparing to some of the other teams within risk assurance, for example, data analytics and people like that, we are more specialized in cybersecurity, or as you can say, IT security and things like that. So this is so there's a lot of umbrellas to be cross-checked, and like it is very niche team inside PwC. And as for my major, so I studied actual studies and economics, majored in financial economics, and also did a year and a half of master degree in actual studies. So as you can see, like my academic background isn't really aligned to what I'm doing now, but that just goes to show you that no matter what you study, there's always a chance for you, regardless of, it always depends on your interest and your ability, your willingness to learn.
I might just add an extra question there, if you don't mind. Did you feel like your background in sort of actual studies and economics gave you a different take on sort of how cybersecurity works, especially with the business industry and the business sector?
Yeah, because I think actual studies really allow me to look at everything from a risk perspective, and not only from a risk perspective, looking at everything from the numbers and quantitative perspective. And I feel like, especially in the cyberspace, there are a lot of needs for us to sort of quantify risk, because it is good to talk about risk in a qualitative way, but with different people, they might comprehend it in different ways. They might have different meanings to it. So it's really subjective to their own personal interpretation. So my background in actual studies gives me like a unique way of thinking about things, especially in terms of, I always want to quantify the risk and finding ways to find a universal and a more objective measure of risk, so that I can communicate cyber risks and cyber risk levels to people, regardless of the positions, regardless of their background, like in a more objective way. And like I said before about something that I would like to take part in a project in the future, it goes into that in terms of my background brings diversity into the team.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more than what I thought than just like the more technical aspect, but there's also, communicating with other sort of different team members and sort of different stakeholders as well. I'll throw everyone can fill in the link that I just posted in the chat, that would be great to help us with attendance. And just one more last question, if you don't mind. You mentioned that you were involved in projects before. Could you talk more about the kind of projects you were involved in and your role in those projects?
Okay. So apart from the project I mentioned before, I also, was in a lot of projects where I had to review their cybersecurity governance. So specifically their risk management framework and how relevant stakeholders report risk to the board members, to the key stakeholders in a more effective manner, and whether or not reporting has been done with it. And also at the same time, on the other hand, also done projects where I need to review their information security practices, because yearly companies like financial institutions need to report to APRA about their compliance against CPS 234. So they need people like us to examine their own practices and to review their documents, to review their, we will always get examples of artifacts, sample of the test they've done against information security, and we will examine that against the best industry practices to see where they are, to see whether or not they have addressed even the findings that we found from the previous year, because that usually is a key indicator of how well their governance structure is and things like that. In terms of my role in those projects, I think most of the time I'm because I'm a graduate, I'm doing a lot of documentation reviews. I'm doing a lot of maintaining like the work paper, doing the writing the report, maintaining the appendixes and stuff like that. And then also at the same time, I also look for situations where when I'm in a meeting with my client, I will look for opportunities to speak up, maybe choose one or two questions that I know for sure that that I know more of, and then choose those questions and practices practices even before the meeting with my managers, and then to become more ready to ask those questions to a client, because I know that like speaking out against a client can be a little bit daunting at times. So I always try to practice those questions beforehand to make sure I'm more comfortable with it.
It ever beats the old saying, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining us today in our career series, and also just wanted to thank on behalf of DigiSoc and the audiences here. So yeah, I hope you have a great day, great night. Thank you. Thank you.